when I watched that opening contest, and obviously a lot of people, our fans, have been talking about Giulia and Roxanne Perez. To your point, I thought the commentators, Tommy, did an excellent job building up that match last night, even during the match, the significance of it, the lineage of that title, who's held that title, so that anybody that's a new viewer understands the importance, understands the significance of the match, and knows who Giulia and Roxanne Perez are. I'm just interested to know from you guys if you thought that was the right call to have Cora Jade come back during that match, because Cora Jade has been gone since January. Pretty much all of 2024, she has been out. So if you're a new viewer and you're invested in this match, you're getting a wonky end because of the interference of Cora Jade, and you probably don't know who Cora Jade is. So, Tommy, I'll start with you. The right way to kick off a debut show with that match last night?
If I could just backtrack for what
Tommy,
you said.
can I say something real quick? So
Go ahead.
This will help you. I think this will help you answer the question a little bit better. Dave, they did something very specific so that wasn't the segment that kicked off the show last night.
They did start with Shawn Michaels and Triple H.
They started with the most recognizable faces there, so that if you were one of those viewers that you just mentioned who's never seen this before, but you're a wrestling fan and a WWE fan, you know that's Shawn Michaels, that's Triple H. I'm sticking and staying on this station. It's not like they came out of the gate with Roxanne and Giulia and Cora Jade. So I don't even know if you realize how you got manipulated in that moment.
And that's an excellent point, because you're starting with, two Hall of Fame
star
faces,
power,
legendary faces. But when it came to the wrestling, you're invested in a match, and you got like a wonky finish with an interference from somebody that you don't know. Like, listen, I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to do. For me, though, I'm invested in it, and then you got the rug pulled out from under your feet. Now, this is going to continue the story. In some ways, you could look at it like, all right, now I'm invested. This is going to make me tune into next week's show. But I'm wondering, Tommy, does that throw you off at all? Because it's interesting to me that that's the first match that you showed last night.
Well, are you ready? Bully's analysis. Exactly for what he said. I thought I had no problem with it. And Dave, I really think, and I'm not trying to make this as an insult, that is I don't want to say jaded wrestling fan. It's more of the smarter wrestling fan. If you listen to that crowd, and as a performer, as a writer, a booker, whatever the hell you want to say, the fans were pissed, but it was also like when she did the reveal, they knew who she was. To Bully's point, it wasn't the opening seg. And here's the other part, which I loved. And I really was waiting to talk to Bully about this. The presentation of Giulia coming off of literally the biggest, most recognizable act, perhaps in WWE history, then the smog, the fog, the smoke, Giulia's entrance. It's an amazing thing to do, because then you are following this big act. Anyway, with everything that went down, I'm okay with it. And it is proven that, because it happens on Monday Night Raw, where either interference, a disqualification, and they continue the stories the next week. So I'm okay exactly what they did. I loved the match. I thought it was it was a great debut. But then again, when you listen to what Shawn has said on our very own show, and Bully asked a great question to him about Roxanne Perez and getting called up and all that stuff, but then it also goes to Giulia needs to get in this system as well. So, and then I'm also thinking about, they now could segue with Giulia and Cora Jade. They could also go with Stephanie Vacour and Roxanne Perez. They could also go Roxanne and Cora F and Jade versus Giulia and Stephanie Vacour. there's a lot of places you can go with this type of finish. You still got an end result, but you also got to remember history. Wrestling fans, we don't forget Roxanne Cora had a history. So it's like the ebbs and flows. I had no problem with it whatsoever. And because yes, it got heat on our person, and I 100%, even though she hasn't been there, when she did that reveal and Vic laid it out like, who is it, blah, 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 and it's as simple as just wearing a hood. She didn't wear a mask because sometimes people convolute things of who you're going to see. Like people are going to recognize you. They're going to recognize you anyway because of the reveal. But once that reveal happened, you heard the what? She got a shock value. She got like, you bitch type of reaction. She ruined this great match, which you also then could have the rematch somewhere on a bigger PLE, have people barred from ringside. If you bring in the other girl, they could be handcuffed together. I mean, look at the bloodline, not the bloodline, the shark cage match. Why? Because there's always interference. There's a lot of places you can go. I had no problem with it whatsoever.
Bully, what did you, Bully, you mentioned, hey, you said it on the show yesterday. Hey, shock the audience. You were like, hey, you know what? If it was up to me, I would have Giulia win the match, win the championship. And then you're starting off your debut episode in your first match with some shock value to it. How do you think it played out last night?
In what aspect? How did
the from what I explained it?
Jade...
Well, can I ask my question?
Yes,
but I want
yes.
You're a first time viewer of Giulia. What'd you think? You have been the one who questioned it. Her. What'd you think?
Okay, appearance wise, she's busy. The gear is busy. There's a lot going on, especially with the fur skirt. There's a lot of things flailing around. I'm not going to say that it's wrong. I'm just going to say that it's busy. Tommy, we were taught back in the day that our gear should never fly around. Why?
It's distracting. It also could get in the way of things.
Correct. And you saw some pieces of actually Roxanne's gear fall off last night.
Had to throw out.
So for that exact explanation happened last night. When you have busy gear, it can get in the way. Also, it can hurt you.
Yes.
Because just as easily as a piece of gear flies off and just lands in the mat, it flies off and it lands in your eye. So when I see Giulia come out, I think she looks great if she's walking the runway for a photo shoot. But then you get in the ring, and between the hair and the fur on the skirt and everything, it makes the athlete to me look like they're flailing around a lot more because everything is flying in so many directions. Don't get me wrong, looks phenomenal, but a little too much. I'd like to see her scale back just a little bit on the gear. As far as the matches, go ahead, Dave.
No, because you said specifically, I want to know how you felt specifically about the ending of the match. Like
I'm
you
getting
said
there.
yesterday. Okay.
I'm getting there.
Now but I hold on, but I'm asking you a question. What did you think of the end of that match and how it ended? Especially for a debut episode on the CW.
I thought it was a very safe way to get out of the match so that Giulia is protected taking the L so quickly. Giulia can always turn and go, well, Cora Jade interfered. They did not have Roxanne beat her, quote unquote, clean. There was outside interference. Is that what I wanted to see as a fan? No. I would have loved to have seen Giulia win right off the bat. Now, I'm sure if Sean was on right now, he'd say, Bubba, why would you want her to win right off the bat when you preach slow and steady wins the race? Because it's your first night on the CW and it's your first match right out of the gate. Let's pop those people right out of their socks and give them what they do not expect. You could have had Cora come down and try to screw her over, but it could have backfired and she could have tripped up Roxanne by mistake, and you could have very easily had Giulia win, and now the heat between Cora and Roxanne, because they already have a history together. That's like one of those interchangeable finishes. You mentioned that you didn't know if that was necessarily the right match to open with. Since there were only 4 matches on the show, what match would you have opened with?
I might have opened up either with the street fight or the women's tag match. The street fight, kind of a car crash, like, as the fans were saying, holy shit, that's a good hot way to start a show. Also with the tag match, you saw from the main roster, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair come out. That could have been a good way to start it as well. Listen, as far as an NXT fan that watches and is obsessed with the show and watches every week, I love that opening contest. I just don't know if it was the right match to start on a new network.
Now, let me give you the reasons why I believe you cannot start with the 2 matches that you suggested. First,
okay.
the street fight. Those are TNA talents. You can't start your first NXT show on the CW with 2 TNA talents. There was a TNA chant in the arena. It only lasted for about 5 seconds, but those are TNA guys. So you can't do that. You got to start off with your crew.
See, unfortunately, they muted my chant. I didn't get to hear it because I think the people at the CW thought it was a tits and ass chant, so they muted mine. So I didn't.
Secondly, women's tag match, probably less recognizable than Roxanne and Giulia. Plus, if you bring Bianca and Jade Cargill out, now you have put Sean, Hunter, Jade, and Bianca at the front of the show, which tells me that you're using this heavy firepower from the main roster and legendary wrestlers to carry you through the show. Don't want to do that. I have no problem with them opening up with Giulia and Roxanne. There's only 4 matches. This turns into a lesser of the evils. I think they started off with Detroit Rock City. I think they ended with Rock and Roll All Night for what songs they had to perform that night. Finish, do I love the screw job finish? No, I don't love it, but I understand why they do it. And as Tommy mentioned earlier, they have so many options. Last week it was like, oh wow, look at the options they have with Giulia, Roxanne, Stephanie Vaquer. Now you throw Cora Jade into the mix. You got 4 strong women at the top of the card that are all interchangeable. Giulia's day is going to come, without a doubt. As far as the match is concerned, I think it was a tale of 2 matches. I think it was the front end. I'll give the first 5 minutes. I saw a lot of butterflies and a lot of nerves and 2 women working as hard as they could to get on the same page. And then they got on the same page. And once they got on the same page, I thought their dance went quite well. I say that they had a good match.
And Dave and Nation, just so when Bully's talking about your gear, back in the day, wrestling Mick Foley, I give him the cactus clothesline over. And as the match continues, I'm looking that my arm is bleeding by my bicep. And then I have this weird looking cut, kind of like a half moon. When I clotheslined him over, he was wearing his flannel, and the button of his flannel was broken, either from impact or broken before. And that gear, and then flipping over, severed my arm. It wasn't gushing, but it was a noticeable amount. And then I had like the weirdest cut, looked like a half moon from just a piece of plastic as a button on a flannel that could have done major damage. But because, again, what is it? Speed, velocity, weight, flipping over the rope, and that loose gear of a flannel is what cut me from the button.
Interesting. No, that's these insights. Yep.
And Tommy, here's what I wanted to ask you about the opening match. If you were the agent last night and those girls came through the curtain, what constructive criticism would you have given them on their match?
I would say I thought you guys did a great job. Like you said early on, you got to where you wanted to go. Maybe sometimes simplify things if it's a first time doing. But I also know with a lot of talents down there, they'll work out before. And hey, again, I thought they did a great job. But then there's other, to Bully's point, there was other ways. If people, and I listen, man, you go back and forth with these decisions. Cora Jade could have showed up when Giulia went for her finish, and Giulia takes her eye on the prize, and then Roxanne hits her with a surprise pop rocks. There's so many different ways to go. But like I said, I didn't mind the finish. But I would tell both women I thought they did an excellent job. It was great representation for themselves, and there's more and better things to come with the two of you.